welcome to the Sacred Rainbow Warrior. Today I'm doing a really special episode about sexualization and life force. What does it mean to be a pure man in a society that does not understand sexuality or the confusion of sexual energy, and why men sexualize women? But before I begin, I would like to say the process of how I do this, because I know a lot of people find this quite scary. And they probably think that I'm quite brave. I know I do think I'm brave. And I say that from a humble place. But when I go through these exposures of my shame, I first do it ceremonially, and I either do it on my own or with my partner. So I do it behind closed doors. And then when I've healed that, I'm able to express it and share it so that I'm in service to help other people heal. So I want you to know that if you're listening and you're trying and you're going through a healing process, an ascension process, relationship healing, integration healing, anything like that, um, that's how the process works. First, you heal it for yourself, and then you share it. You don't share it while you're going through the healing, otherwise that can create a lot of problems. And the way I do it is through self-exposure, and it may be different for the feminine, but it also works for feminine because I do it with my partner. But we have different bodies, and so the energies work differently. But the way I work is I do this through self-exposure. So if I have a distortion, a judgment that isn't, in alignment with love, I share it from a humble place. I say, "Oh, my ego thinks this," and then I investigate and I feel into it and I find the origin. So you'll understand why I'm able to expose something quite vulnerable today in this. So I'm going to begin now. So I'll talk about um, I'll talk about why men sexualize women, but to get to the answer first, I have to tell you a story about dancing with water. And this is really profound. I really, really enjoy this. So, as a young child and as an adult, I was berated and constantly told I was gay, homosexual, and queer, despite being totally straight and a red-blooded man, so to speak. So, I realized this was a deep fear of something, but it took me decades to truly understand it. And when I did, it brought up my own fears of my own sexuality, homosexuality, all those things, and homophobia, stuff like that. So I found I found many of the obvious reasons was because I was berated and bullied, was because I enjoyed talking and expressing my emotions, the opposite of what most men do, and that can be seen as quite feminine. Plus, I showed respect towards women, and when I did that, I was berated, which took me into a spiral of toxic masculinity, tainting my life, my spirit, and so eventually I became that which I despised. And this is to do with, I've done videos on how men are targeted by the matrix, how they're more vulnerable to this due to having different bodies. So, the DNA, stuff like that. Um, and so in order to overcome the bullying and the toxic masculinity, I betrayed myself. I became part of it. I was beaten so many times in my life. I've done so many videos on violence, and I'll continue to do so because it's really profound and it's very difficult to overcome. But like I said, I was beaten so many times throughout my life that I felt like there were times when I would actually lose my life. Um, and so I chose to become that energy that I despised so I could defend myself and fight back. There's so many times in my life where I was just attacked. Um, you know, I remember this time I walked up the road with a couple of friends and four guys got out of a car. We didn't even do anything. And they hit me over the back of the head with a round bat. There's so many instances I could tell you, and most of them, changed my life, made me go inside, made me lose fear, agoraphobia, PTSD, CPTSD, ADHD, autism, bipolar, all those things I had to overcome by taking responsibility for it. But because I decided to become part of it, and I mean this at like a soul level, like a deeply unconscious level, like I was manipulated into taking part of it instead of taking a beating. I became narcissistic, judgmental about the sexuality of men and women, But after a deep spiritual journey of purification, I decoded those energies of sexuality within myself and my partner. But the cherry on the cake was what my soul said. When I questioned all the choices in my life, I asked my soul the question, why did I choose this? And I was shown several memories. I recalled a moment when I was feeling lost, down and depressed with my life, like just didn't want to go on, very, very much like apathy. I was standing in a bar in Moorgate in London. That's where I was working at the time. And I was holding a beer, trying to enjoy the company of my fellow workmates. And I felt so misplaced, like I was just a toxic man trying to fit into a toxic society where everyone was ignorant to taking responsibility for their behavior. And I remember hearing a voice deep inside me saying, you're gonna use this one day to help other people. And so my soul then sent me the message through feeling that I made the sacrifice of betraying my heart so I could enter the matrix of toxic patriarchy, learn how it works and take it down from the inside. And that's exactly what I've done and what I'm doing. So and I'll talk into the twin flame energy with my partner, how I went from friends to twin flames, because I couldn't have done this healing work without working opposite the feminine. So I never understood why I was berated about my sexuality until I started my purification in partnership with my partner, Hazel, also in partnership with the feminine. We began as friends and later we became partners, but that was a long process because as we delved deeper into our self-study of purification of ourselves, we realized we had a joint purpose. We were twins, twin flames, born under the same star, apparently. That's what we channeled. And I studied my own masculine energies and that of the feminine energy. And I confessed I had judgments against sexuality because of my time spent in the toxic patriarchy. But the day it all changed with me was when I had it's difficult to describe. It was like something between a walk-in embodiment, a lot like that film Ghost of Patrick Swayze, when he jumps in and out of bodies. And I remember it was an eclipse and I was sat in ceremony opposite my twin flame, opposite my partner, and we were breaking the divide between friendship and being lovers because we've been friends for a long time and there was like this unsaid energy between us and that happens a lot between men and women, but for twin flames it's a lot more difficult because you're breaking not breaking but you're overcoming the lies and distortions between friendship and love. And because I hadn't confessed my feelings for her, because my heart was unable to express itself to me, so it looked like we were going to end our journey together because I couldn't express myself. I couldn't free my voice to say the words to her of how I felt. And that was when something really miraculous happened. Really caught me by surprise. I had my speakers on. I was playing random songs on Spotify, and the song "Wet Wet" by Wet 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 came on. I feel it in my fingers. I feel it in my bones. Came on, and it's such a really romantic song, and opened up a profound sense of heart opening in me. And a spirit jumped into my body, and it was the goddess Hathor. I knew it was her because for some reason I always had a strong connection to her, and I had a statue of her on my altar, which I'd recently, a few months ago previously, I'd already purchased, and I had it on my altar. Plus, I'd pulled some tarot cards from my Egyptian deck before, and it said, and I realized afterwards I had pulled a Hathor card, which was about joy. And she jumped into my body to ignite me, to ignite my feminine within me. And it was a really odd sensation because for about a minute I felt like a woman. And my first thought was, does that mean I'm gay now? It was a really crude thought, and I realized Hathor had opened the access to my internal feminine, showing me love through her presence, and it opened up something incredible in me, dance. And this is where I talk about dance a lot in this because it's so movement is so incredibly profoundly linked to our sexuality. And I will integrate animal wisdom into this to help you better understand what I mean by that. But I loved to dance when I was a kid in my bedroom, but I never did it in front of everyone. I didn't want to be witnessed because I'd been bullied so much just for being who I was, not for dancing, but just for being myself. I believed I had this judgment under myself that I danced very feminine because I moved my hips and expressed my soul through movement, a bit like a woman does in a way. But that was my judgment, my self-judgment. And I said, Hazel, I can't dance like I want to in public because people think it's gay, And this judgment of being gay was showing me the toxic abuse I received in judgment of my sexuality, mirroring my own fear. And instead of accepting that answer, I dug deeper and I became enamored with the feminine energy within me. And I found it liberating to be able to let my dance out. And in letting it out, I understood in that moment the energy of the feminine is considered sexual because they hold an energy of magnetism. It pulls you in like the moon pulls on the tide. So it wasn't about being sexy or sensual. It was about the energies of sexuality and creation because it is the feminine energy, because it is the feminine energy that consists of creation and life, which is the energy of the womb, which is the energy of the sacral chakra, which is the water chakra, the orange of life force and sexuality, the waters of rebirth and birth and rebirth. But what the mind sometimes knows, and I had to go through this so many times, is what the body doesn't, and vice versa. The body's more slower moving, it's more about feeling, and the mind is very fast, it's more about knowing. But in order to turn that knowledge into wisdom, it has to be embodied into the body. And my body knew how to dance, but my mindful ego, let's say, was afraid. But the big question I had to investigate was, what was I afraid of? And I'll get to that because I have to tell this story to help you understand how I got to that answer. Otherwise, it's just going to go into your mind and not into the body. When I finally plucked up the courage to dance in front of my partner, it was in ceremony and it was absolutely magical. I closed my eyes so I didn't have to feel like she was watching me, which allowed me to come into my own energy so I could dance for myself and she could witness me. And by holding that space for dance, because a lot of doing ceremonial work in divine union with the twin flame is about being witnessed. So for a woman being witnessed by a man and vice versa for me being witnessed by a woman. And it's so powerful to be witnessed. And I did an episode on my podcast, number 14, The Robin. He's about a witness and it's about standing on the shoulders of giants. When you stand by someone, like when the robin stood on the crown of thorns, it didn't hurt its feet on the thorns because it was protected by its loyalty of friendship. And that's what about being a twin flame is about. So it's so profound working with animal wisdom. I just absolutely adore it. I hope that sinks in for people. But if you've got any questions, just ask. So I completely surrendered and allowed my soul to take over the movement, the control of my body. And my energy, when I was dancing in front of her, exploded into dance from within my body. And I was expressing my own energy of creation, which came from my hips, my sacral energy, which is the feminine energy of water. I was expressing my water consciousness and flow in the rhythm of dance. I was expressing my consciousness in complete flow and love open within me, and my third eye opened, and all of a sudden I could see the universe and my body and ancestors were watching me, and then they joined in. It's profound, and that happens now whenever I do that. So I unlocked this really incredible gift, and the more purification I get, the more I feel like I'm actually in it instead of watching it. It's incredible. So due to that embodiment of Hathor, I was able to do that with my ancestors. I allowed my ancestors to enter my body, and I started to dance because they were dancing through me, and I was dancing in ways that I never imagined. I danced like animals, and I danced ancient tribal dances, moves, and I sang in strange ways. And I never felt so good in my life. It was incredible because I was bringing up something deeply lost, deeply tribal, like, shamanic heritage that had been, destroyed from I don't know how many thousands of years ago, but it was coming alive through my DNA, highlighting it, stimulating it, healing it through the dance and the movement. And this taught me how to balance my masculinity. And it also taught me that the dance is about expression, uncontrolled expression, just wild expression, just releasing complete control and just handing over that control to spirit. the spirit of myself and my ancestors, the expression of creation. And this brings freedom of expression. It brings joy. It brings wholeness. There is no separation in dance. Only the movement of emotion, which opens the doorway to the heart and to spirit, the divine. And when you're in that energy, there is no fear of judgment. You just completely let loose. But like I say, it's a deep practice, and I had to do it with my eyes closed, and it helps focus. And I need my eyes closed to see through my third eye anyway. Otherwise, I can see, but not I'm not in it as well. And the surrender to being in your own energy is very essential. And I feel like I'm dancing for myself, and I'll go into this about the sexualization of dance. So it is the sexuality of the sacral chakra of water, of consciousness, because water is consciousness, because it holds memory, which creates the flow and movement of dance. Women are naturally attuned to this energy, and so a woman dances in flow, but men repress their energy of sexuality, and they enslave and oppress their feminine energy because that's what they do outside. And so the movement that men find feminine is actually sexual energy befitting for a man, but our patriarchal society, especially parts of the church, have rejected the energy of the feminine, the sacred energy of sexuality. And so we label the dance, the sensual dance, as feminine to prevent the power of the dance to be embodied within the man, which is the abandonment of the self. And this is really interesting because the abandonment wound is one of the most painful wounds a man can experience. It's so painful that it's buried deep within the unconscious. And most people aren't aware of this. I wasn't aware of this because it's so well hidden. And but what I learned is when we abandon ourselves, abandon our sexuality, we abandon ourselves because we abandon accepting who we truly are, because sexuality is life force, is the force of our life, it's our soul. So if we're abandoning ourselves, it's because of that, and it's a deep wound that takes a lot of conscious healing, conscious focus. Now, think for a moment how profound it is when we abandon our sexuality, we abandon ourselves. Now, you can see from if when you really take that in, you can see why the gender wars, the pronoun changes are truly painful and excruciating wounds of avoidance, of abandonment. As I always say, everything comes back to narcissism because narcissism is a toxic shame avoidance system, and the abandonment wound is surrounded with shame. It's a very triggering topic, especially for me, but before I healed it, but it is the only way that a man can heal the abandonment wound, a wound that all men have buried deep within their unconscious, deep in the waters of their own sexuality, because the abandonment wound isn't just from your own mother in this lifetime, but it's abandonment from your own femininity, and it goes all the way back to Gaia. It expands in so many different multi-dimensional avenues of consciousness. But as a man, I naturally hold the energy of fire. But in order to purify myself, and contrary to popular belief, I had to go through the water, not the fire, deep into the blue, deep into the feminine, deep into my emotions to free myself from shame, which meant I had to surrender to the feminine, to the feminine within, and the feminine outside of me, my partner Hazel. For it's only when a man first surrenders to the feminine that he can truly be free. This meant sharing my fears, acknowledging my power, and learning how to open my heart in new and profound ways, something I've always struggled with. And because I went through that, I now know how to do that. Now I have loads of different techniques on how to do that. And I definitely think it's more difficult for a man to do that. Women are naturally more inclined to being heart opened, especially when I was going through my spiritual journey. I just had women say to me, "Oh, just open your heart," like it was nothing. And I was like, "How do you do that?" And they're like, "What do you mean, how do you do that?" So I have found it profoundly difficult to open my heart, and it's been a really long journey of devotion. It's been very difficult to learn how to do that. Um, but by surrendering so deeply into the waters of my emotions, I went deep into the darkness, and I encountered deeply unconscious, profound levels of grief I never even knew existed. It hidden in my DNA, but were now released because of this acknowledgement of my sexuality. You know, the grief of betrayal, the grief of betraying my own innocence, the grief of loss, and so much more. And I continue to go down that path because there is just so much to grieve. And every time I do, I heal even more parts of my DNA. The DNA they call junk DNA is actually your innate DNA, which holds all your soul gifts. That's just been laid dormant because we were disconnected from it. So I and I, you know, this is information I channeled on my journey. This isn't stuff I'm just making up. I opened the damned, I opened the gates of Tartarus, right? And I undamned myself through the sacrifice of honoring the feminine within me and without. And when the dam gates opened, it washed away all the toxicities inside of me, and I felt free again. I did a video on this about damnation. It's really interesting because when there is a dam within us, it creates a blockage to the heart and a huge avoidance. And dance and movement helps unblock that. And when that washed away all toxicities, I felt free again. So I cried, I cried a river, like I cried an ocean, and what I am capable of because I'm devoted to letting it all go. So I can recreate myself to be the person I always dreamed I could be through acknowledging that and being devoted enough, sorry, to allowing that grief to flow through me because it's not just my grief, it's the grief of my ancestors. And to do that is in great service and great rewards come with that. And what I believe is a man who can change his own inner world can change the whole world because it's within and without. It's as above, so below. And this is my goal. And this is the kind of work that I do in divine union with my partner. It's really big, and I'm trying to break it down into bite-sized chunks so that it can be understood. Because you, when you work like this, you make such fast quantum leaps. You become more and more, I don't know how to say it, more and more divine, and your consciousness expands, and you go through contraction and expansion, and that's difficult. But there comes a point where you become so stretched that you just become all of it, and your whole body becomes a whole heart instead of just in your chest, and you become walking, living love. I realized once I purified my emotions through grief, through grieving, I surfaced from the deep waters of my emotion, from all the hidden shame and ignorance. And when I came back to the light, I was able to reclaim my fire. But I did this really gracefully. I didn't scream and bash my chest. I reclaimed my fire with grace and honor, so and gratitude. So through this spiritual initiation, I learned that I now held the energy of fire and water. And so when I started to dance, alchemy opened within my heart, which allowed me to create my own unique dance. This is what I've done. I embodied the water and the fire, and I created something in divine union with myself, something unique, sacred, and pure to me. I had accepted my sexuality. I had accepted my water. I had created my own dance with water. I mean, how does it get any better than that? Now, I'll talk into why we sexualize each other, and this just gets more and more interesting, so stick around. I realized I wouldn't dance because I was afraid to express my sexuality. Yes, the suppressed feminine energies within me that allowed me to come into partnership with my masculine energy, but this wasn't the deep answer I was looking for. So again, I asked, what it was, why, and I dug deeper, and it led me to why I was sexualizing women. I said to my partner, I need to know why this scares me. So she asked me, she spoke to my soul, sat opposite me, and she said, why are you afraid of your sexuality? And my ego wanted to say, because I'm not gay, I don't want to be gay. Because I thought by accepting my sexuality, it meant I would become something that I'm not. And this is the fear that most men have when they desire to ascend past their ego, or most people actually. But there are always lies to overcome, and this was a big one. And they disguise these lies, so it makes it very difficult to identify them and overcome them. But there was something beyond the judgment on my sexuality, so I sat in that shame and pain, and I waited for my heart and soul to speak to me, and then a memory came. And this is where it gets vulnerable. But like I said, I've healed this, so I don't mind sharing this. But I was 8 years old. This is the memory that came up, and kids were playing games on the street with throwing water balloons at each other and firing water guns. It was the height of summer, and everyone was having fun. And I'd become enamored with this girl. She was about 7 years older than me, not because I fancied her. I was too young for that. I was only eight, but she reminded me of my cousin, who I loved deeply. So I became really like close to her in that way, in a really innocent way. I remember I was sitting in my hot tuna surf shorts. I don't know if anyone remembers hot tuna. I was trying to imitate my older brother's taste in clothes, and they were all the rage in the 80s. They were bright yellow and pink, and I was sitting opposite this girl on the pavement with one of her friends, and she said to me, "Do you sit next to a guy called Eric Shawn?" And I replied, "No, I don't know anyone called that. I don't." And she kept continuing, and they were laughing at me, and she was pointing to pointing at my shorts to the point where I felt really uncomfortable, and I left, and. And I walked down the road to my home, just a few houses away, and asked my brother, and I said to him, "I don't get it." She kept saying Eric Shawn to me and laughing at me. And my brother said, "She thinks you had an erection." Eric Shawn. And my face went red. I was felt so angry and embarrassed at the same time. But and I said to my brother, "But I didn't." And my brother was like, "I know, but she just wanted to make fun of you." And I didn't understand. I felt humiliated. I felt so betrayed. I was just being myself, just being innocent. And the crease in my shorts made her believe I had an erection, and she took advantage of my innocence. And that really hurt me. And so I closed that part of me. And when I came back into the present, I realized I was afraid to dance because I was afraid of showing my sexuality for fear of being humiliated. I later learned that that's what sexual abuse is. It's humiliation. I'd shut that part of my sexuality off as a child because of that incident, and it stopped me from being myself from fear of humiliation. I was so sensitive to judgment, I shut my life force down. I shut a part of myself down. This is how profoundly abusive humiliation is. And it was a profound discovery for me, and it helped me understand why men sexualize women. So men sexualize women because they deny their own sexuality and they seek to control and pervert it in the power of women as a mirror. This is one of the main reasons women are hunted and betrayed by the masculine, because men sexualize creation, and the feminine is the goddess of creation. This is because men wish to be sexualized. Now, this is where it gets interesting, because I had to mirror this back to myself. This was confronting for me, and a complete slap in the face, because I knew every judgment is just a mirror of my own self-judgment. So if I wished to be sexualized, it was because I was sexualizing myself because of my wound of humiliation at the hands of the feminine. So then I realized that I was sexualizing women because I was sexualized by a woman, right? And it's funny when you think about it, because men and women are constantly firing judgments and insults at each other, and women saying that men are always thinking about sex, and yet I was sexualized by a woman. And you could say, "Oh, but it's not. She was just poking fun out of you." But it was to do with sexual energy. It's all to do with that. It's life force. So when men and women are constantly firing judgments and insults at each other, it's when the opposite is actually true. So the only way through the war that man has towards the feminine, towards creation, is to first understand his own sexuality, to take responsibility for that, forget blame, and deliver unto himself his own creative expression of who he is. That doesn't always come through dance. Of course, it comes through art and in so many different ways of living. But as I learned, judgments are useless in every way except one. The only use for judgments is to help you understand the judgments you have against yourself so you can heal them. So if I have a judgment that somebody is ugly, then what do I find ugly about myself? That's the only good reason that judgments are there for. So they shouldn't really be spoken out loud. They should be heard internally and go, okay, what is that? And turn it back. So then I turned this energy outwards and I started looking into why my sexuality caused others to humiliate me. And it brought me to dancing again. So some like to watch others dance, but they wouldn't, but most would never partake. And this is what I explored. And I remember I spoke about this years ago in front of people, and the reaction I had was like, there was, I was talking to in front of about 50 plus people, and there was only a handful of people that were looking at me like really like listening, and the others were like, oh, they felt really uncomfortable with this kind of conversation because it really does expose what everyone is going through to some extent or another. And some people may not have a triggering reaction to this because they may have done a lot of healing already. But I asked myself, why is the dance so frightening? I found dancing really frightful. Like whenever there's a school disco, come and dance. Oh, no, no, I'm not going to dance. But all the girls found it easy. And I never understood that. But to me, the dance, it's sacred, it's not sexual. And for that reason, it can be frightening to some and exhilarating to others because the dance holds, a lot of power. When the dance comes to you, it's asking for you to move, but how do you move? Do you move with the energy around you? Do you move to free yourself from the judgments of others? Do you move out of fear? Do you move to learn how to move? These are all movements, but they're not quite the dance. The dance comes from within. It's an expression. It's unique to you. It's not how you study someone else. It's how you move. It comes from moving in beat to a tune that only you can hear, the tune of your heart. Music is a melody. Sometimes that melody has words, but those words, like my words, also play a melody. A melody to your body, your heart, and soul. What is melody but a vibrational expression of creation, a vibrational creation of expression? And what's the opposite of depression? Expression. So the question we can ask ourselves, am I dancing to my own heart? Am I dancing to my own rhythm? Or do I dance from fear, from a place of judgment? Do I dance out of fear from judgment and humiliation? When we understand this fear, you can personalize its point of view to show that you are afraid you will humiliate yourself, just as I did. A great example to use in understanding this wisdom is, as always, to work with the wisdom of spirit animals. I'll use cats as a great example. Cats are feline, which means they come from the feminine line. Every move they make is sensual, and they're not afraid to do so. Even male cats wrap themselves around your leg, like as if to say, I'm adorable. You cannot withstand my charm. And yet, as humans, we judge that movement and say it's feminine, right? You wouldn't see a man wrapping himself around another man going, feed me, please. Dancing is deeply shamanic, deeply tribal. And as men, we've forgotten this. As men, we're afraid to express our dance, our creativity, and our emotions. Not all of us, but most of us, because sometimes that looks feminine, because it is the energy of life. The feminine is the energy of creation. We live on the feminine. The earth is feminine. She is alive. She is an entity of love. This is confusing for men because we're taught to, bash our chests and chop wood. And when we're fed up of our fathers, brothers, friends, and society telling us to bash our chests and chop wood, we rebel and change our sexuality, or worse, we change who we are. For how is a man supposed to make sense of his purpose amongst all of this mix of energy? What does it mean to be a pure masculine in a society that does not understand sexuality or life force? In a society that perverts it? It is presence, it is support and protection. And when you provide that presence, support, and protection to the feminine within and outside of you, it allows the feminine to dance without labels, without judgment, without fear of being sexualized. It allows the feminine energy to be free, to be unchained, for it is only through acknowledging the power of the feminine energy. And I've said this so many times, can man truly be free? When I healed the judgments I had on my own sexuality, I removed the judgments I had on women. When I allow myself to dance, I allow everyone to dance. Why is the unknown so frightening to men? Think about this. The unknown. What is the unknown? The unknown of not knowing what to do, the unknown of getting up and dancing, the unknown of putting love before fear. The quick and honest answer is because the unknown cannot be controlled. And without control, there is only love. And love was turned into the enemy. I spoke about this on my video about how Men have given love a bad name, and that's not a judgment. I go into it more, which means men fear the unknown because they fear love. Men fear women. I've acknowledged this many times. I fear women in many ways, and I've had to overcome that fear. And most of that reason I fear women is because I'm afraid I'll fall in love with them, because they are magnetic and they are great. And it's just a fear. It doesn't mean I'm going to act on it. It's just an acknowledgement. You just have to acknowledge these fears so you can let them go. And then the lies are removed. We're in the age of overcoming lies this year, the age of the wood snake. The snake is about lies and truth. The snake is a truth teller. But in the distortion, all those truths have been turned into lies and vice versa. So it's difficult to understand the straight guided alignment with the soul of what the truth is, the real truth, because love is truth. There's not one truth for one person and one for the other. There is a divine truth, and this is how I work. So to me, the unknown is the power of creation itself. It is the paradox of creating something out of thin air, just like the dance. If you trace back the creation of everything and anything, it comes from nothing, and nothing comes from everything. So to create something unknown is to create life, the power of creation. This power is so big in its love that it can be frightening, for it is the power of love. And what is more frightening than love? The misunderstanding that men have about love is quite simple, really. They try to minimize and control it and judge it with the mind, with logic. But love demands sacrifice. It demands to be met in the heart. And without the heart, there is only misunderstanding. This is why there is so much misunderstanding of women, so much misunderstanding of the feminine, and vice versa. It's really profound, and there's a lot of mess. But I'm pulling this apart to help people understand that the truth is actually there, but it's been covered up. And all these judgments come up. Will I fail? Will I succeed? Will I be judged? When in being in the unknown, will I be hurt? Will I be humiliated? The questions flood into our minds of men, just as they did to me, but no answers appear. For the unknown does not dance to answers. It dances to the rhythm of expression, the rhythm of the jungle, the rhythm of the night, the rhythm of the deep, the rhythm of life, and the rhythm of death. Death in nature is not judged in the same way that humans judge death. Death is one of the highest expressions of love you can encounter in nature, for it is the end of a cycle of love which allows and makes way for a new cycle of life to begin. The rebirth, the evolution and recreation of your soul. So you could call death the life giver, the game changer, for it works with life by directing life. So let the power of death direct your dance. Let it direct the death of your ego, the parts of you that prevent you from releasing the dance within your heart, the parts of you that wish to suppress the feminine. Let the naysayer inside you, the one that says you cannot dance, I shouldn't dance, don't dance like that, that's not right, or what would they think of me, meet their doom. Let the voices be drowned out by the rhythm of your melody, by your movement. Dance so in rhythm to your heart that your DNA holds hands with your soul and shakes you into a higher dimensional timeline of purpose and bliss. Trust me, it's really good fun. You do not know how the unknown will strike, or even if it will strike. It creeps behind you, circling you like a panther in the night. Look on the thumbnail I put on this video. It's beautiful. It's watching you. The jaw ajar, saliva dripping from its bright white teeth, illuminated in the dark like fluorescent knives. This is the panther stalking you. It is walking and stalking in reverence to the unknown, to the deep sensuality of the dance of life, the dance of deep. It circles and questions you. Are you ready? Are you worthy of the dance? Can you allow my power to dance through you, wild and untamed? It is sensual, it is dark and sexy, and more often than not, it cannot be contained or described in words, and so it must be danced. Just like the feminine, she cannot be contained. She is multidimensional. She is art. If you don't understand her dance, how do you describe your pain to someone in dance? How do you describe your wishes and desires you dare not speak to another? How do you talk to your life when you wake up in the morning? Why talk when you can dance? Dance out of bed, dance to your bathroom, dance to your kitchen, dance to your life. The panther works in the darkness, for its love is overwhelming, so much so that it exposes the fear hidden in the darkness. This is what makes the panther so unique. Even the darkness is afraid of me, it says. But you must not be afraid of the darkness, for it is only there to be loved. Profound. To understand the fear of dance, you must understand the fear you have of your love. It is not your soul that fears love, it is your ego. The ego is false darkness. It is the impure parts of you that have been stuck, that have become stuck, old, aged, distorted, and twisted through the constant betrayal of your heart. And because they are part of you, and because they're part of you, they cause you to forget who you are. How can you remember who you are when you have so many parts of you telling you who you are not? This is why the dance is so powerful, for the dance allows you to tap into the melody of your soul, the melody of light and love. The light purifies the darkness within you so that that deep sensuality of your dance can flow through the night, through the deep, through your emotions, through your body, through your consciousness, through the dark. Be not afraid of the darkness, for the darkness is trapped in you, not the other way around. So, as I did once when I was surrounded by demonic entities, when you dance and you're afraid to dance, you say to those voices, I'm not trapped in here with you. You're trapped in here with me. Today, watch out for which animal stalks you. It may not be the panther. So will it be the flamboyant flamingo that prances in dance? Will you be the dragon that dances with the wind? Will you be like Bambi on ice? Or will you reclaim your power of dance as the panther watches? Only you will know. Circle yourself, center your stage. All eyes are on you. Don't let yourself down. Bring yourself up and be the star that you are. For if you For it is you that dances for you. Don't dance for the lust of another, dance for the lust for life and for the wholeness within you. For lust can truly be purified through dance. But how the really interesting question is when I did this, when I channeled all this information and I embodied it in myself, I always then turn it into the third line of consciousness. How is it expressed around us? So how does this is I found this really interesting. I think this is really absolute genius when I asked this question to myself. How does the energy of dance show up in nature around us? So the energy of dance is elemental. It embodies the different energies of earth, fire, wind, water, and spirit. It's a movement. And I know this from how I work with animals. Like, so it's a movement. It's like the playfulness of foxes. Like everything is a dance. It's the gliding of an eagle's wings up in the currents of the wind. It's the dance for a mate, it's the hunt for food, it's all of these because it's the dance of life and death. The dance surround us, and it's not obvious to see even when it's right in front of us. So let me point out the dance to you in elements that surround us. And you can see it through the metaphysical, through metaphor. I'll use earth as the first example. The soil, it doesn't move, it holds and it nurtures, but it can be cracked open. Watch a tree dance. It happens slowly over days. If you use slow motion capture, you can see it moves just like plants do. It remains rooted in the earth, in the darkness, and it blooms into magnificence, showing all its beauty, going through the cycles, shaking its leaves, shaking off that which no longer serves, giving back to the darkness, feeding from the light of love and branching out into the world. So dance like a tree. Water, the water within us, the emotions, the consciousness, our memories. When the waves push forward and then they pull back, watch as a fisherwoman fisherwoman, yeah, fisherwoman or a fisherman casts his line. He pulls back and then he casts forward, push, pull. He casts forward and then he pulls back again to catch his prey. This is the dance being mirrored in us from the emotional consciousness of water and the moons intertwined with our body, our emotions, the water within. Can you dance like water? Can you flow like water? Fire. Fire is heat. It's the explosion, it's the rage, and it is anger. It's the raging fire of your emotions and creativity. But fire is also grace, beauty, and elegance, passion. Fire cannot be tamed, just like the feminine, but it can be respected. It is the fertilization of the soil. It is the transmutation of the old person we were into the ashes from which we are reborn. The phoenix. Fire is a friend to be honored, so dance like a flame. Air. Air is wind. It is breath. It is whoosh. It is the carrier of sound. It is what allows us to breathe life into our bodies and give back to life with the carbon that we breathe out. We breathe in love and we breathe out gratitude. Thank you. Air is the cold and hot air that dances with itself to create the hurricane or the tornado. It is the twirling dance of chaos, the pirouette of nature's movement that cleanses the land to make way for something new to be built. Can you dance like chaos? Can you dance like order? Can you dance like the wind? Or better still, can you dance like Dorothy in The Wizard of Oz? Dorothy Gale. Spirit. Spirit is the fifth element. Spirit's all around us, it's within us, it's what guides us, it's what holds us. It is the unseen and seen, known and unknown, stillness and movement, seeing and hearing, pushing and pulling, jumping and standing. It is the beating of our hearts, it is the energy that flows through our limbs that guide the other elements. It is what brings us all together here today. It is love. So today, dance to your own rhythm of love. Dance your ego to death. Dance until you can no longer dance. Dance so much you have to go to bed early tonight. And when you sleep, remember who you truly are, for you are always dancing, even when you're asleep. Thank you. Bye bye.